Well, Mitch, the drawings are in, and we've got a bit of a challenge on our hands. So here it is. We've got a 34-storey tower with a bit of a surprise on the end.
Wow, what's that, a big cantilever?
It is 25-metre cantilever with a 21-metre reflector frame coming off the bottom.
What are these mirrors on the bottom of the cantilever?
So what happened is that light comes down from the sun onto the west tower, where it hits a series of heliostats which move with respect to where the sun sits. That light is then reflected up to the reflector frame and then subsequently beamed down to 5 locations on the podium. Well, enough of the architecturals, let's go see how this is going to work.
Let's do it.
So what have we come up
So
with?
basically, we're going to have these 4 big trusses. They're going to be supported by 8 columns, like this. 4 on the east side, 4 on the west side. The trusses are going to come out and support the reflector frame, which of course supports all the mirrors that we talked about before.
There are going to be hundreds of mirrors on this reflector frame. How could you possibly install them? After all, it's probably about 110 metres off the ground.
I say we make these reflector frame beams big enough to support a BMU. It'll come out and be able to install these.
Well,
mirrors.
it's very ambitious, Mitch. But with such a large mass cantilevered on a structure like that, how are we going to deal with the differential movements on each side of the building and the long-term creep effects in the vertical elements?
Well, why don't we take all the extra vertical loads in the columns and push and pull? Structurally isolate the trusses from the core so that no long-term effects are taken by the
This
core.
seems like a massive engineering challenge.
Yeah, let's go do some numbers, prove this thing works.
Sounds good.
A series of separate wind tunnel tests were completed for various scenarios.
Mainly across the side, but there's a load cell here, so I've measured
A base balance model was used to determine global overturning moments and base shears on the tower.
it was connected to a load cell.
Localised testing, including load cell and pressure tap models, were also completed on the truss, reflector frame and reflector panels. All the testing was completed by CPP and integrated back into the structural model to determine the design of the members and the connections. This animation shows how the trusses, reflector frame and mirror panels are installed on site. Individual truss sections are bolted together on the ground and lifted onto a capping slab at level 29. The internal truss sections are then installed with secondary framing and temporary propping. The trusses are designed in detail to be effectively pinned at the back of the building and allowed to slide at the leading edge to accommodate movements during construction. The cantilevered sections of the trusses are then lifted as 2 complete boxes and hung in position on the crane until fixed in place. Once additional floors are constructed above the back span, the reflector frame is lifted into place and locked in by perimeter framing and the sky garden slab. Mirrors are then added to the reflector frame using a permanent hung building maintenance unit, and the remainder of the facade is installed. The trusses and reflector frame were fabricated by the Smaris Group in Adelaide and transported to site in Sydney. The trusses were welded and fully match fitted in the workshop to ensure there were no connection misalignments when erected on site. All critical welds were tested by an independent NADA approved certifier. Robert Bird Group coordinated with Wattpack contractors to work through any detailing and site issues to ensure the heavy structure lifts were able to be completed without incident. This often required coordination with the design team in the office to resolve the issues. The reflector frame lift required careful planning to ensure the 95-tonne structure could be positioned and fixed without incident. The The exact mass centroid was calculated to allow the rigging to be eccentrically placed so that it could be rotated and slid safely onto the truss hangers and released without any bolted connections.
Give out. Why
The lift took approximately 7 hours to complete.
I create my prison? I'm chained by my own heart and mind. And I'm back to where I was again. Take you in as you take me out. Cut this string, I'm getting higher and I can't.
Once the frame was installed, all the mirrors were attached and the sky garden fitted out with glazing, a swimming pool and 4 trees to allow this new residence to become another Sydney landmark.